Hi, I'm Dr. Quentin Morris, artist, scholar, in residence here at Classical King FM, and welcome to another episode of Unmute the Voices. Orchestral music in this country, of course, is revered as one of the kind of pivotal ensembles in classical music. So many people who go to school to become professional musicians aspire to become orchestra players. They want to play in a major symphony orchestra. And of course, there's a way in order to get to the major symphony orchestra, they first have to play in a youth symphony orchestra. A lot of young people, including myself, played in youth symphony orchestras growing up, and we were inspired not only by our peers and our colleagues and our friends who played in the symphony orchestras as youth, but also in conductors who have a major influence in the shaping of the musical lives of young people. Today, I am proud to be able to introduce a very prominent Hispanic Latin conductor who has had an incredible career conducting, of course, in LA, and now here in Seattle, conducting the Seattle Youth Symphony Orchestra, which I am a proud alum of. Joining me today is Juan Felipe Molano, who is a conductor of the Seattle Youth Symphony Orchestra. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome.
Thank you, Quentin. I'm so happy to hear your voice and to hear you're a proud alum from SYSO.
I had a great experience playing in that orchestra when I was in high school, and I'm so glad and honored that someone of your caliber and esteem is now the conductor of an orchestra that not only means so much to me, of course, but also to the greater Seattle community, as well as to just the greater Youth Symphony Orchestra community, because Seattle Youth Symphony is the fourth largest youth symphony orchestra, or is it the first?
Yeah, it's one of the let's say top orchestra training programs in the U.S. and it's related not only with its size itself, but definitely with the impact that the program has, the variety of programs we have, not only in youth orchestras, but the festivals, the summer programs, the conservatory. So I'm really proud, and it's a big responsibility. When I moved to Seattle, I was really feeling that little pressure, but also excitement to just become part of a really, the reputation from Seattle in the whole country is really high, as we do not only classical music, I have to say, in different music genres, we have been always a reference for many others.
So can you tell us, what is the life of a conductor of a youth symphony orchestra? You're working with kids, and I work a lot with kids too. And so kids forget a lot of things. They're obviously very talented, but they're kids. They forget their pencils. Sometimes they forget their instruments. Sometimes they forget their music. Can you tell us, what's the life of a conductor? Are you kind of their musical parent? And if so, what does the responsibilities entail?
We have to understand the big role we have. We have to be definitely a role model for everyone. And I've seen many times how students want to emulate your things. I recall even a student in an orchestra started to let his hair grow exactly the same like mine. And his mom pointed it out. He's like, Maestro, have you noticed that my son, Jose Luis, I haven't, mom, but it's true. So you have to be a role model. You have to be a motivator. But something that it's really important to me, it's understand that they are just our young colleagues. They are our colleagues that they are on the work. They are just working towards becoming better citizens of the world, perhaps musicians, but perhaps as a politician or whatever, but they are our colleagues. And that's something that I do believe. It's not just this hierarchy where you are just on top. We are just in the same place. I'm just doing a concert this week with an orchestra, and at some point, the actor required, because with actors is like the beautiful Carnival of the Animals by Sansong. And he said, can you actually interact with the pianist? You remember that place where we have the pianist being one of the animals of the carnival, and then can you just like teach the student how to play the scales? So then, oh yeah, of course. And then all of a sudden, just sat down in the piano and started playing. And all of a sudden, I noticed, oh, I became again a musician, and I'm not just there anymore on the podium. And then I was playing, and all of a sudden, I started to realize this is just about colleagues. And really, that's pretty much what I would say, motivating, being a role model. I think ethic is something we have to embrace really highly. So students are always watching you, how you move, the words you use, everything. And I think that's a really important role. We are educators, and we happen to educate with music, or even through music. And I think that's really important to me, even when I go to a professional orchestra. And I think that's really important. Something really exciting about my career is that I have been able to accommodate both worlds. Youth orchestras and professional orchestras, and kind of like rotate, go back and forth. So I bring that excitement of working from youth orchestras to the professional orchestras, and they look like, this guy is so excited. Why? We're just playing Brahms one again. No, because I come from working with kids, and when I get back to the kids, I'm really kind of like, we have to be in tuning together. Why?
Yeah.
Because I was working with the professionals and they did it. So why not? So that kind of like relationship, I really love.
And so that parallel between working with professionals as well as working with youth, what would you say is the thing that is most similar about working with both types of groups, and something that is obviously very different? And I'm not talking about age, but what is something that is starkly different between working with young people as well as working with professional musicians?
Um, Probably the pace is the first thing. So the pace in a new orchestra is slower. So you have a semester, a trimester, 2 months, or a month. So with a youth orchestra, it's not common that you have 2 weeks. Sometimes you do, but usually you have at least 1 month. So the pace is different. With professionals, you have 4 rehearsals, 2 rehearsals. Or as I have this week here, as I connect from Medellin, Colombia, we have just 2 rehearsals. That's it. So that pace is the first thing. It doesn't mean that we can really increase it with youth orchestras, because it requires different angles. So you have to have coaches who actually feed them with the technicalities and the whole staff on the ground. But also the how to mature pieces is something that definitely is a big difference between youth orchestras and professionals. And if you ask me about something similar, I think it's pretty much we open a music, when we open a music for the first time, when actually we're doing a premiere, or if this is a piece, a well-known piece, we're in the same place where we have to figure out emotions, we have to figure out technicalities, and we have to just get them into our technicalities, as you said, like the technique and everything, and put it out to the audience. That's exactly the same, no difference. And the ultimate goal is that music lands on some souls and resonate, and they feel fed. It's not they are just paying a ticket, but they feel fed. Oh, thank you, as you actually think. Good chef for you.
You know, you mentioned earlier about the student who grew their hair out like you. So imagine for a moment, Maestro, that your whole orchestra is so inspired by you that they all grow out their hair. And you have all of these people, these students who come in, and they've got this long poofy hair, and they all want to be just like you. What's the next step that you would do to inspire those young people who want to be just like you?
Probably I would just go the reverse way. We need to
And
find
cut
their
your hair off?
uniqueness. We have to find their uniqueness.
Yeah.
That's something I really reinforce. So What are
What's that
so
mean
many
though?
modes?
What's that mean? How do you do that though, as a conductor, to find the uniqueness of the individual students who are all a part of this large ensemble? What do you do?
I think we have to always have a nice read. I think like good doctors sometimes they have you walk into into their hospital and they kind of like see, oh, I know what is going on here. So you have to develop an eye where you see this student needs a lot of pressure at this point.
Mm,
This student doesn't need any pressure. This student needs a cue every time he needs to
mhm,
play. This student needs just one cue because if you give too many, they will be distracted. This student needs
mm,
just a word conversation after the rehearsal. So it's kind of like starting to read what every student needs and really not copy. So not really go by the book. That's
mhm,
something we learn over time, that you have to start understanding the where every student is coming from and helping them out develop their own musicality, and that is needs to come from the uniqueness. So
mm,
sometimes if they have a solo, if they are lucky enough to play a wind instrument or even a violin, or as you did in the past, you can also have a solo, and that's easy. Like, hey, this is your solo. This is the standard way to do it. But hey, do you want to just add something else? Do you like to do a little vibrato here or non-vibrato? Oh, but I
mm,
haven't heard any recording that way. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Do it. So
mm,
that type of like encouragement, and
mhm,
sometimes, of course, you have to help out. Like say, hey, uh, like feel free to do something different. We follow you.
mhm,
Or yeah, it really depends. I think I would say reading what every student needs is something as educators we develop over time. We also make mistakes as anyone. And you know what? Something, Queen?
mm,
Accepting the mistakes. You know how powerful it
mm,
is when you are in
mm,
front of the orchestra and you
mhm,
say like, I think I gave you that cue so strong that that's why you're playing so loud. Let's just do it softer, and I will do it softer. So sometimes kind of like blaming yourself, even if you're,
mhm,
I mean, when
mhm,
you're guilty, you're guilty. Hey, that was my mistake. But even sometimes reversing the process, like saying, you know what, I think I gave you too a big cue. Let's do it again. And so you're gonna be playing softer after my cues. Like not saying play softer, play louder,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
reversing the process, yeah, sometimes helps.
You know, I really appreciate you saying that because there's kind of this misconception that conductors, you know, that there's this hierarchy, right? That they're here, and the youth or students or even professional musicians are down here, and I appreciate the fact of you. Basically teaching, in this case, young people how to be vulnerable, and how to um, own your mistakes, and showing that um, making mistakes is not only a part of life and not only a part of the music making process, but also it allows oneself to become even more human in the process of music making. And I think that's very powerful. Can you tell me a little bit more about what sort of human qualities or um, personal characteristics that students learn under your tutelage, besides vulnerability, which you seem to demonstrate very well?
Resilience is really important.
Hmm.
Uh, Picture yourself playing a solo, and you're working really hard on it, and then all of a sudden it doesn't come out as you expected, and then how you actually just embrace that moment. I recall at this point one concert with Youth Orchestra Los Angeles. We were doing the waltz from by Shostakovich, the very famous waltz number
Mm-hmm,
2.
mm-hmm,
And I recall it has the first time is with the clarinet solo, then the orchestra, and at the very end, we had the trombone player play the solo. And that trombone player played all rehearsed beautifully. Then we came to the concert, we played it, and she started to be so nervous that she missed part of the solo. And then, you know what I did?
mm-hmm.
I just stopped and I said, um, "We are going to be taking it from the top again." And I say, like, "Do it again. I know you can do it." We did it, and that was a life lesson for her of resilience and of just overcoming challenges. I could just like just put a little like just saying, okay, it's fine, just like a little carpet, and you uh, just broom under the carpet. And like, there's no dust
Mm-hmm.
here. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's just human. Not even mistakes, because I think that the when we talk about mistakes, it's like those takes that we missed kind of thing, and it's like no, it's actually learning opportunities. And so I think that's important, resilience. And something that I think is really important is passion. And passion, if the best way can I the way I can describe passion is in the German context, because the etymology of passion in German, which is Leidenschaft, is a collection of sorrows, collection
Mm-hmm.
of pains. So when you're like, be passionate, not you're like just dancing and vibrating like 2 inches wide. No, it's actually taking all those pains and sorrows and excitements and things you have in your guts out. And that's something for us as musicians, you know this really well. When you start doing this, you start to mess with your technique and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind, because I think they have to cross that line to just know what the line is. So sometimes I require a little bit more until they notice that was too much. Okay, we found out what is this too much, and let's go one step back. So don't cross, you have to cross it first. So that's something I kind of like with me. They look at me sometimes pushing them in terms of like faster tempo, or as loud as maybe they are sounding a little bit bad. And then, oh, we crossed the line.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make like go one step back. So that
Mm-hmm.
would be something I definitely believe. It's
Mm-hmm.
going beyond the expected
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and embrace it, and really understanding that art is really about communicating. And if
Mm-hmm.
we are not really expressing ourselves, we're not communicating with anybody. We can communicate with ourselves. So it's not like that's a really not only semantic but really important thing about the art is like we can really express to ourselves. We have to communicate with others, even
Mm-hmm.
though if that others is through a recording. Sometimes we just express too much to a recording, and it lands in one beautiful shelf at King FM, and then all of a sudden it goes to the world. But it was at some point communicated to a tape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful, and in all of those qualities that you just described, there's also a stronger sense of community, and that's really what this all is about, right? That's what makes a great ensemble, no matter if you're a young person or if you are in a youth symphony or if you're in a professional orchestra, is that real tight knit community. And that's something I know you grew up with. I know that's something that's really important to you. It's important to your ethnicity, your ethnic heritage. How much of that do you think contributes to the sense of community that you have built with the Seattle Youth Symphony? Being that you are a man of color, being that um, your community is very much tightly bonded. How has that? How do you bring that to your music making? And do you think that being a person of color is impactful to the young people of your orchestra?
I think it is. I think being a musician, an artist, somebody who's an immigrant of color means no no frontiers. We are just all together, and something actually that is quite beautiful. It's Seattle Youth Symphony, of course, carries this title. And we have to be really honest. I mean, Seattle Youth Symphony has been in the past really on part of one part of Seattle. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have right now, along with the board, with our parents community, is to make it really to extend this to be really Seattle and the greater Seattle area.
Mm-hmm.
So where we all live. And I think that's a point that all are committed to make this an organization that is um, not only uh, collaborating with others, because it doesn't really deny or actually exclude others. We have to communicate, we have to collaborate with all youth orchestras, small, big, any kind in the school districts, private schools, um, south, east, west, north. Just basically, that's really important. And yes, to your question, I feel really proud of being able to bring an eclectic version of what symphonic world is. Because of course we might know, oh, Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, great. Yes, great, but that's just one piece of the cake. And a really old piece of the cake. So we're talking about great guys that we all love. Uh, but we're talking about the 18th century, 19th century, the 21st century. So I'm really committed to the new composers, young composers, composers of color, female composers, composers to really bring their uniqueness. But something about the orchestra that is fantastic is, as a community, we have to actually embrace a new composition and kind of like find out what it is. And if you have a new composer, it's beautiful because you have the composer telling you, yes, I wanted to do this and that, but let's change something. Or I wrote forte for you. No, it's softer or whatever. That process, it's just beautiful. So I do love new music in that way of this community brings a new member called like Jodo, Jodo, that's how you call it, like Jodo or Jado.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what do you call it? Yeah, correct. So like just somebody who comes in, this is my music. And no differences. Of course, coming from Colombia, we are ethnically, we are so rich, we have everyone in one place. So the African South American community is extremely strong, but we have also the native South Americans, we have the Zambos, the all combinations. I happened to do this DNA test a couple of years ago, and that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, because it was not just one or two countries or one or two ethnies. It was like you name it. So like
Wow.
probably I can say probably like 15 countries in Africa, different ones. So wow, 15, like 1% from Nigeria, 1%, and that is something I'm so proud. And I know, and you also know, many who at some point deny that. I love when they just do this test, like hidden test. Yes, and they say, I feel like I'm strongly only African American. No, you do have something from here and there. I feel I'm Germanic, and no, I'm so sorry. You also have some genes here and there. So, and that's music. And I love that about music. It's about inclusiveness, like including everyone in one place. So I hope that Seattle Youth Symphony, under my tenure, as many years as they need to be, until they are really tired of me. Until then, I will be really hands-on this commitment, and I have to report to you all. The board is extremely committed. We came to a place during the pandemic, doing so many like social, really struggling to say, okay, this is not going to work this way. We have to really address the awareness. We have a really long depth with many different communities, and of course the composers of color, and of course the musicians of color, but it's something I need a lot of different people to help me with. So like community members, and I think I'm with you, Quinton. I think we need to do community in orchestra.
Yeah, I appreciate that because as someone who is an alum, I was always the only black in the orchestra, and I never really saw people who looked like me when I was a part of the orchestra, and of course in school as well. The different schools that I went to, I was generally one of the only people of color. So it really makes me proud to know that the Seattle Youth Symphony is making strides and making moves towards being much more equitable and much more inclusive in not only their programming and not only in their outreach, but also in their impact to the community that I think is just so incredibly important. My last question to you is, I'm curious. Today is your birthday, And so, first, happy birthday to you. I won't say your age, but I think we're around the same age. Um, if you had to give a birthday present to yourself at the age of 21, and also give a birthday present to yourself at the age of 31, both in the forms of advice, what would you tell your 21-year-old self, and what would you tell your 31-year-old self?
Victor, you should ask me this question like 2 weeks in advance. So I need to have a dissertation about that question. So, and I will get a PhD definitely. But let me just find what comes up to my really at first.
Okay.
My little piece of advice is definitely, first of all, first is really enjoying life every second. And there's one piece, there's one beautiful part in the Bible that I love, that it says, uh, um, like one day at a time, like that, like every day brings your own. I'm just translating from Spanish.
That's
Like
okay.
every day brings your own kind of like struggle slash new things slash everything. Like every day brings your its own whatever. Every
Yeah,
day.
say it in Spanish. I'm curious.
Okay.
What
Cada día trae su afán. And afán actually is hurry. Like like each day brings its own hurry. Like you have to, yeah.
like your own journey.
Correct. So you know
Yeah.
what would be my little piece of advice? Like every bar and every note brings its own hurry slash struggle, beauty, etc. So we have to live one note at a time. And that would be my little piece of advice. Sometimes as musicians, we need to have this long view, this kind of like, we develop that, but down to the earth is really one note at a time, one bar at a time, and in different ways. It's not just like playing like 1, 2, 3, so you don't mess with the notes, but it's really like letting every note go through your whole body, bringing that note and letting every human being in the audience have this journey with that little note and one after the other one. So that would be my little one. And it's the same for 11, 21, 31, 41, and at some point, so for 51. So yeah, yes. Just leaving one every bar at a time.
I love that. And that could be applied to musicians as well. Just one note at a time. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And, I think that we're always in such a hurry, and I think if there's anything that the pandemic has taught all of us collectively, is how to slow down and enjoy every note at a time, every moment at a time. And so that's a beautiful, beautiful way to wrap up this episode. Thank you so very much for joining us and for sharing your wealth and your knowledge and sharing your experience as well. I appreciate you being here in Seattle. I appreciate the great work that you're doing in our community, and of course, working with our young people. I appreciate and love your passion and your artistry and all that you have done to enrich not only the lives of young people here in Seattle, but also just globally, and the work that you have done in all the different communities in which you work in. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Quentin.
Thank you so much for being here.
There. Thank you, King FM. Thank you for having us, SYSO, as really great part of the cultural circle. I think we were working to embrace more people, to make this open door policy, people for everyone, find the ways to eliminate all barriers for people to just come and share music. And I do take the responsibility fully of what we are doing on raising better human beings for this world, cities for this world. So thank you, Quentin. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everyone for watching this show. This is Unmute the Voices. I'm Dr. Quentin Morris, and we look forward to you joining us next time. Enjoy your day.